Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Ascension Gateway and to our discussion about my favorite person, and that is Yeshua, Jesus, who we know as Jesus Christ. And yeah, I mean, it's Easter. Happy Easter to those who celebrate.
Yes,
It's
happy
a,
Easter.
it's a, thank you. I mean, it's a really awesome time. Spring's here, at least in Oregon. I know, Alicia, you said that it wasn't so much there today.
It's trying. It's really trying, but we're I think a few weeks away.
Yeah,
Easter's really early this year. It's like the earliest it can be. So
yeah, yeah. And Kim, you're in Arizona, so you probably have spring year round. You're spoiled.
We do have seasons though. I'm out in the desert hiking every morning or running now. And I just noticed that the saguaros and the different cacti are starting to bloom. So we do get spring and it's so beautiful. And we had a lot of rain, so the desert is green, which I
Mm.
love. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's spring for us for sure.
Right. Okay.
Our
Okay,
version
good.
of it.
Yeah, we got some sunshine here in Oregon, and it's we definitely, since I moved back home, appreciate the sun a lot more than when I lived in the South. That's for sure. So yeah, and one thing I want to mention is that Easter, before it became kind of a Christian holiday, was a pagan holiday or earth religion holiday where we celebrated the spring equinox, and so how do I call it? And honored the goddess Ostera. I think that's how you pronounce her name, Ostera. Yeah. And so the Christian community used Easter but I guess that was a good time to celebrate the ascension of Christ, right? And why not celebrate all of it, is the way I see it. Yeah.
life, right? Because that's what Easter's about, right? Life.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And so we came together today to talk about Christ's ascension and what we're celebrating on the Christian holiday, which is tomorrow. Yeah. And how he was able to teach us about how we can all do the same thing, that we all have it within us to ascend ourselves. And so I want to talk about that and what we can do to be like Christ. Why not? He says that what I do, you can also do, right? So all three of us here have had tangible experiences with Jesus, with Yeshua. And I mean, he's always tangible among us, but where we saw him physically in some form. Yeah. We know in that matter that this is Christ right here with
Yes, absolutely.
yeah. So we're going to go around and just share a little capsule of our experiences with that. And I'll start with mine. I had 2 near-death experiences, and I was just sharing with Lucio and Kim that I just finished my personal book on my 2001 near-death experience in the aftermath, and I sent it over to the publisher a couple days ago. Oh, I can take a deep breath now. Thank you. Yeah, I'm really, really excited. 10 or more years in the making, so finally, it's a wild ride, let me tell you. So anyway, I write about that, and I've talked about my experience with my NDE in 2001, where I was met by Jesus, by Yeshua. Being raised Catholic, I wasn't a good Catholic, but he met me anyway. And right. And then I remembered when I was 9, I had an earlier near-death experience where he met me in that experience as well. Afterwards, I realized that I was, and as I was writing my book, and I'm sure Kim's an author, so as you write And Lucho, you write too, don't you?
Yes. Yeah. Nothing
Okay.
published, but yes, I do. I do write.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah. As you write, you start to bring up things that you're like, wait a minute, I forgot about that.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I had many experiences where Yeshua met me in my out of body experiences in my travels,
Wow.
helping me to remember my near death experience.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit about my experience with him. I've had quite a few, and him visiting in my room afterwards as well, after my NDE. So I know he's real. I know how much he
Yes.
loves me, and he is who he says he is. One and yeah, one of us basically, yeah,
Yeah.
who has
Absolutely.
ascended. Yeah. So I hear a little bit of an echo. Mm. So do you have your speaker on?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll put my headphones on.
Okay. Okay, that would help. Thank
See if
you.
that works. Yeah. Okay. Hold on.
Okay. Okay. Kim, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, so I was raised in the Christian faith and so Jesus was my Lord and Savior. I remember actually, how you can have real visceral memories. I remember being on my knees praying to ask Jesus into my heart. And there was a breeze that day and it was really light in the room. And I just remember I was like 4. I remember being very happy about that. So at a young age, Jesus was in my heart. And then, of course, I grew up and just became more spiritual. And for a long time, when I kind of abandoned Christianity per se, I didn't really know what to do with Jesus because I had only seen him through that lens of the
Mm.
Christian sort of dogmatic way that you have to pray a certain prayer and he's your Lord and Savior sort of thing. So he was distant from me. He wasn't like me. So when that shifted, I didn't really know what to do with Jesus. So then it was really cool when, honestly, Buddhism brought me back to Jesus. I know that sounds odd, but it really did because I learned Buddhism and I just went, oh my gosh, this is what Christ taught us. So I was able to come back to Jesus then and just really see him as friend and ascended master, of course. But then I had my own vision with Jesus and it was just really awesome because, like you said, it's him. You can
Mhm.
feel and know it's him without a doubt. There's no question there. And he took me to the time of Moses and Pharaoh and basically where Moses says to Pharaoh, "Let my people go." And they were enslaved. His people were enslaved. And so Moses was there to bring the people to freedom. And basically, I was shown that to basically say, you, Kim, are going to let my people go as well from their own self imposed slavery. And that
Oh,
really resonated with me. I believe that any ascended master, but Jesus for sure, shared things with me that I would understand because of where I was at in my life and what was going on and becoming a coach and a healer type of person. And so it was just really special too, because Jesus said that I was so much like him. And the fact that I sort of have this teaching style, I love teaching. And that's what Jesus did. And he hung out with his disciples relationally. Like he and his disciples hung out. And that's kind of what I do. I'm a mentor. So my vision was just really cool with almost like affirming me in my style of coaching and teaching, and that I've got a buddy in Jesus and that I'm very much like him. And so I look to his stories and his parables a lot because it's kind of that same process. I feel like Jesus had to take this conscious information and try to convey it to these people that were so stuck in their old ways and their old religious habits and rituals. And so he had to take the time to really, how can I convey this to them in a way that they'll understand? That's literally what I do. I mean, I'm sure you guys do too, but it's just really resonating with me. And he just showed me tons of verses that I knew as well. And I just kind of saw them in a whole new light. So yeah. So I'm excited about this conversation though. I'm really excited to see where it takes us.
Nice. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Kim. Lucho, do you mind going next, please?
Sure. So I was brought up Catholic as well, and kind of left my spirituality when I was about 15. I didn't come back to it until I was about 26. I met a dying man on the street one day, just walking. It was actually Palm Sunday, 1995. And that experience kind of woke me up. It kind of let me see how distance I'd gone from God, because when I met the dying man, I wanted to pray with him and just help him in any way I could. But I felt this real distance from God that I didn't realize was there, that I'd gone so far away. So after about a month, 2 months of real soul searching, I committed myself again to my faith and to Jesus. And I really did turn my life around, started praying and connecting back with my original faith. Thought I might become a Catholic priest. And along the way, I ended up getting a teaching degree and was offered my dream job at my local high school, teaching religion to students, high school students, and teaching a course on social justice as well. So, and after about 8 years of real soul searching about my vocation, about maybe I should become a priest versus stay as a teacher, I realized, oh, this is where God wanted me. I felt very comfortable with teenagers, and I felt comfortable, spreading the word of Jesus and love. But it was all based on faith. I always had a deep, connection with Jesus. But a miracle did happen to me. It was in about the 8th year of my teaching. I was on a retreat with my grade 10 class, and it was on a lunch break. My students were having lunch. The facilitator of the retreat came up to me while I was just hanging out and said, "Hey, I got a message from God. He wants me to pray with you. Are you okay with that?" I said, "Sure." We went to the chapel. She sat me down. She said, "I've got some messages for you," and they were very personal messages that I knew no one knew about me. So she had got my attention, and so I know this was a really special thing that was happening. We then started to pray. We knelt at the front of the chapel. She was to my left. I was to her right. She took out her hand, and we basically held hands while praying. My eyes were closed. I was kneeling, and while my eyes were closed, a vision of Jesus appeared to me. And at first I thought, am I dreaming? But my newfound friend also said, "Oh my goodness, do you see him?" So it was a shared vision. And I couldn't deny what I was seeing, but more importantly, what I was feeling. And it was an incredible feeling of love that I've never had since. It was just overwhelming. And every particle of my body felt I was being loved. And of course, the feeling of not being worthy and, why me? And at the same time, my friend kept saying, "Oh my goodness, you're so blessed. You're so blessed." So I knew that she was seeing what I was seeing and feeling what I was feeling. And it was a bigger than life projection. It was almost like he came through a tunnel. He was like the Jesus we see. I mean, long hair, the white robe, the beard. He had more than blue eyes, maybe white light eyes, and but more importantly, that smile that was just unbelievable. And the first thought that did come to mind was, "Oh my God, you're real!" Like again, it was like there was no denying. It's like, but it was like I had the faith, but now I had this real blessing. It was like it's real. Jesus is real.
Mhm.
And what's interesting is I didn't feel the need to say anything. I didn't want him to say anything. In fact, I kind of remember, because my friend kept saying, "You're so blessed. You're so blessed." I just felt like saying, "Shh, quiet. You're ruining this for us." It's like, let's just experience this. And yeah, it was just an incredible. And I lost, of course, track of time. But I knew my eyes were closed all this time. But it was just my eyes were open. I could see the chapel. I could see, those stained glass windows. And this feeling, and in the end, the feeling was almost painful. It was just too overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
And I do remember breaking off the connection with my friend. So the thought of my students, where were they? Just the physical part of life came to, like, how long have I been here? My students are unsupervised, that sort of thing. So I broke off the connection. I opened up my eyes. And, of course, the vision was gone. But it was the most important thing that ever has happened to me. And it brought my faith into like something that's kind of unique, I guess, in that I don't have faith. I mean, I do know. It's not a faith. It's I know Jesus is
Knowing.
there. Yeah. And
Mhm.
and very, very, very loving. And I think Kim said a friend, a friend, a person to be with you always. So, yeah, that's my experience.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Lucio. Yeah. It's interesting you say he had blue eyes, because I saw him with blue eyes too. And some people
Uh-huh.
said, when I do interviews and stuff, I've seen a couple comments or some comments when other people have shared that, well, he had brown eyes. He was
Mm-hmm.
Mediterranean. He should have had brown eyes. I'm like, he's not showing his physical self.
Mm-hmm.
His eyes, what I saw in his eyes was the universe.
Yes. Yeah. The light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. He was showing me not just the light of the universe, but I was how do I say it? I say it better in my book, believe me. But I was reflecting. That light was being reflected from my eyes into his that was back. We were reflecting the light of the universe, the light of source, or whatever you want to call it. We were reflecting that back when he was gazing at me. I felt that, and then that's when I was merged with him, when we merged into that light. 'Cause I didn't have a physical body, so it wasn't like it was, a physical body wouldn't be able to handle all that light normally, right?
Right.
It would take a big process. And so there was a merging there.
Very
That,
nice.
yeah. And so I'm glad to hear you, because I've heard other people say that his eyes were blue too,
Mm-hmm.
or what they saw, and that's how I saw it. And I got that information that's as what it's the universe. His eyes hold the universe.
Yeah. Yeah. There weren't eyes. In fact, I don't think there were eyes. It was just something. It was,
Portals.
yeah, God there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He embodies, and segueing into our conversation today.
Mm.
He was able to attain the ascension of his physical body that embodies God, source,
Mm-hmm.
where he was able to embody that. And that's why he was able to ascend. And Lucio, Lucio, make sure I say your name right.
Thank you.
Okay. You are a religion teacher.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
In the Catholic school system. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what is I'd like to know how the conversation around the ascension, and what, how is that in your teachings? How does
Well,
that shared with
I have to stick to Catholic dogma and the curriculum. So the Catholic doctrine is that Jesus sacrificed himself for our sins, and that he overcame the debt, I guess, that we had. all of humanity. He was the sacrificial lamb, and his innocence was all pervasive, is pure, and so through the sacrifice of the cross, he was able to resurrect on Easter Sunday, and that brought the connection to God back to humanity. So from that point on, we are one. We could be one with God through Jesus' sacrifice and through his teachings. So he's a conduit,
Okay.
but also God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. He embodies God. And he teaches us how I understand is that we are all God, or we all embody God in expression. We are all expressions of God. Does that make sense? I don't know if the Catholic teachings talk about that.
Yeah, not literally, but we could accept God within us and allow God to shine through us, and
right.
yeah.
Okay. What you were saying about him died for our sins, and he created a way, is the conduit for us.
Mm-hmm.
I posted on my blog today from the Way of Mastery that I just hit me. It's from the Way of Transformation. I haven't gotten that far in the book yet, but in the study material, I'm still in the Way of a Heart. But he says, and I'm going to read this real quick. Beloved friends, understand well then, and I say to you yet again that I come only as your brother and your friend, one who has walked as you walk, one who has breathed as you breathe, one who has cried as you cry, one who has laughed as you laugh. I am as you are. If there is anything that I can give unto you, it is simply this: as you look upon your life and every event that unfolds within it, every time you feel that you have failed, every time that you become conflicted, I'm feeling them. Every time that you're sure that you'll never be able to transcend all of these ups and downs and emotional waves that seem to come with living in your world, remember, I have overcome the world. And because I have done it, it is done for you already.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's basically what you're talking about. He says, why? Because we share the same infinite field of mind that far transcends all levels and dimensions of manifestation. You can tap into what has already occurred. You need only look upon me as your brother and friend and acknowledge that the world has been overcome, and accept the freedom, which is the effect of its overcoming, as your own.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So that's another way, I guess, of saying he died for our sins in a way that's not guilt ridden.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
It doesn't lay the guilt on our shoulders.
Yeah.
He died for you. Come on.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. You're a sinner.
Yeah.
Accept it.
Yeah. I was just thinking that. Yeah. And what the leaders of the church did after that to make it into a transactional event which they could control, and therefore use power to control the flock, the congregation. And I love the brother friend part, because a brother friend is not up above here. A brother friend is equal.
Yeah.
And I'm getting goosebumps when I say that. Yeah.
What are your thoughts, Kim?
Well, as you were reading that, it sounded very biblical, as someone who, really knows the Bible. So to me, it did feel very much like what the Bible kind of says, with kind of dying for your sins, like I have overcome the world, and you can tap into that. Is that so? This book you're reading from, The Way of Mastery,
Mm-hmm.
what exactly is he saying when he says, I have overcome the world? Just that I have become conscious and I don't identify with the world and the body?
He understands the illusion. He knows that this world is an illusion. Yeah. When he says that I've overcome that, I've ascended out, he doesn't have to, and they talk about the karmic wheel, the wheel of karma, or reincarnation of karma, that wheel. And so he's saying he's moved, he's stepped off the wheel basically. And the way we could do that, and I was telling Lucio this earlier because I read something, and here's another book that's amazing, The Sermon on the Mount. It's just this big, and Emmett Fox, and so much profound stuff where he was in the early 1900s, where he was the leader in New Thought movement, power of positive thinking, and I always wanted to know what the Sermon on the Mount was all about, right? Because I didn't quite understand it, the whole, in biblical words, or in the words that the dialogue he used back then. So I'm like, I want to understand. So I got this, and he explains it in terms of how he understands what Yeshua was teaching us. And this is called the Sermon on the Mount, the key to success in life. This little book is really all you kind of need, but it's he's a Christian, from a Christian point of view. But he talks about karma, and he says that finding the Christ within, you're able to step off the wheel of karma. And I got this, and that's what Yeshua did. He stepped off that wheel. I mean, he was able to transcend the physical plane, basically, while in the, physical body, I guess you could say, which is what we can also do. He showed us what we can do. We can do that. And I got this intuition, and I just, when you get those inspirations and your body's like kind of like just filled with all this light, because light carries knowledge or information, that there's two ways to step off the wheel of karma. One is through pain and suffering. The other is through the Christ light, finding our Christ within. And he teaches us that we are already all there with him. We already are Christed. We just have to remember that, and remember that this is the illusion. This is an illusion. This is a dream that we can, we can still live our life, but to know that we don't have to suffer. We don't have to suffer. We can choose another way to step off that wheel, and that is through what he taught us. Love.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention with the Sermon on the Mount, that was just, so basically when I had my vision with Jesus, he told me to go back and read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John again, but only, kind of only what Jesus said. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of put everything else away. And, again, I had read the Bible a ton. I was married to a pastor in my 20s. I even learned some Greek. So to read it again and only what Jesus said was super powerful. And a few things really stood out. And of course, the Sermon on the Mount. Because again, so Jesus had to figure out, how do I share with these people, that the kingdom of heaven is within. You don't have to follow this dogmatic way of doing things. And so what I'm just curious what the synopsis was from the book Sermon on the Mount, but what I got from the Sermon on the Mount, it's all about living from your heart. It's not by following some rule, because he's basically saying over and
Right.
over again, don't the losses don't kill. But he goes, but I say don't hate. Like, it's the same thing. Like, what it's about your heart. How do you feel in your heart? Don't commit adultery. He's like, don't look at someone lustfully. It's the same thing. It's about your heart. Live from your heart. And so that was really powerful for me. And then it was also powerful for me because, again, I had grown up very strong Christian with, you're going to go to heaven or hell sort of thing unless you pray a certain prayer and believe a certain way. I thought it was really interesting. In Matthew, I think it's chapter 6, the disciples asked Jesus, how should we pray? And Jesus said, well, pray like this. And the reason why they asked is because back in the day, the priests would be all big and large and pray in such a way to gain a lot of attention. Look at me, I'm so pious. And Jesus said, basically, this is the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, la, la, la. And at the end, it says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And that kind of stopped me in my tracks again, because I thought, wait a minute, he's talking about forgiveness, that we can have forgiveness right now. And he hadn't died on the cross yet. This was chapter 6. He dies on the cross in like chapter 25.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very powerful for me. And so in these moments, I was kind of sitting there going, I'm having some cognitive dissonance here, And then I don't know, is there time for me to share one more that I thought was really, really neat and powerful? Okay. Yeah. So I think a wealthy man came to Jesus. So hopefully, Lucio, you might have to help me with this, but I love this story. He comes to Jesus and the disciples are there too. They just walked around and he would teach and people would come and listen to him. And he said, what must I do to receive the kingdom of heaven?
Mm-hmm.
Did he say the kingdom of heaven?
I'm not sure of the exact words.
I don't think he said saved.
What more do I need to do to be perfect? Something like that.
Yes, to be perfect. Thank you. That's exactly. What do I need to be perfect? And Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Right? Am I getting this right? And then he says, well, I've done that.
Yes.
And so then Jesus says, well, if you want to be perfect,
right.
This was so beautiful to me because it was like, okay, you can do that, but you can go this far too. He goes, sell everything you own and follow me.
Mm-hmm.
And that was amazing to me because, again, it wasn't some formula for salvation, but it was just a life of service, basically. But there was a distinction between being a follower and being perfect. And perfection is that, like, to me, I picture Mother Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
She went to India and she didn't want any more than what the people had that she was serving. She was so content being a servant of Jesus and just giving. And so that's what I symbolically saw as I read that too. So
yeah. And we don't know what happens to him either. No, or he's not named. He's not named, so I don't think he was. But he says he went away sad. I think they say he said went away sad, and we don't know what happened to him. So maybe he did it, maybe he didn't. To be continued, I guess. I think what Jesus was doing was looking into his heart specifically and saying, okay, I'm looking into you now. And I know that money for you is getting in the way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And, but I like what you're saying, that it's the whole transactional thing, I think was put upon Jesus by theologians, trying to make sense of, why would he die on the cross? And there's got to be some, theological reason, and tying it back to Old Testament and sacrifice and all of that. But it doesn't jive with what we know of Jesus and Yeshua. And for me anyway, I'm thinking I'm moving away from that. and more to what we're saying, that he's showing us the way to overcome the world. And when I think of that, I think of all the negative things of the world, the illusion, as you said, and so that I think is the goal, right? And we can literally overcome death, even if the body dies.
Yeah.
Our soul goes to God and to love, and that's ultimately what we're all meant to do, right? But if we can do it while on this plane, even better, and maybe stop the reincarnation cycle. Yeah, if we can do it here,
Yeah. I thank you for sharing that, Kim, Lucho. Yeah. I've gotten the information. The more we do here, the better off we are when we leave our physical body.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The higher we can go into the light. I shouldn't say the more we know, but the more we live from the heart.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. Yeah. The more we live from the heart, the higher we can go. And the higher we are able to go. But there are belief systems in the heavens, the heavenly realms, where people are religious. I've come across them, and I know other travelers that have as well. People are still religious, and they're in that belief system territory where they're still living a life, because we don't just sit around on a cloud playing a harp, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's boring.
Mm.
Yeah, we still have a soul. We're still living. We're still existing. We still want to be of service. We still want to live from the heart. We still want to, do whatever, have experience and all that. And so there are systems or territories where people gather together that have the same type of belief system. In whether it be Christian, whether it be Buddhist or whatever, it doesn't matter. But if they're stuck in their beliefs, that's where you gather with. And if you don't well, I don't know how to explain it, but if you have judgment in your heart, you're still in that belief system, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So once we let go of our earthly notions and earthly judgments, which is what he teaches us, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes from the Bible, because Jesus was asked many times, how do I get to heaven or the kingdom? He said, your heart will take you to where you can go. I mean, it's so simple. It's so beautiful. It's like
I know.
your
He
heart
even
will
says
take you.
that. He even says that in the way of mastery. It's really pretty simple.
Uh-huh.
It
Yeah.
really is pretty simple. He says the
Yeah.
way is simple and so easy that the mind of the world overlooks it. The mind thinks, well, it can't be.
Right.
That which is simple seems impossible to that which insists on complexity. The mind insists on complex problems for us to solve. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And we get abused by power too, because people in power will complicate things in order to manipulate and rule over. And
Yeah.
it's such a shame.
Yeah, and Leah, hey Leah, she said something that I quote the law of one myself. In forgiveness lies the stoppage of the wheel of karma. Yeah, Leah, so true, and that's where we're at. And Yeshua teaches us that.
Right. Well, while on the cross, one of the few sentences he said
Mhm.
was, "Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing."
Yeah, yeah. So,
And I think that's important. That I'm so glad you said that. Was very powerful for me as well to realize. To me, that means forgiveness is a state of being.
Mm.
Jesus just was forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
because he sees the state of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
when you are forgiveness, that's obviously a super high vibration. And that has an impact on those that are not conscious, that are lost. And so, kind of like staying in the light.
mhm. Yeah,
Don't, there's the verses too. Don't hide your light basically.
Mm-hmm.
Wish I had my Bible in front of me, but
No, that's the quote.
on the
Yeah.
hill, something like
Yeah,
don't.
don't. No one lights a lamp. It puts it under a bushel or puts it under the bed. You put it
Yeah,
on the lampstand for all the world to see.
yeah,
Yeah, we're taught that in the Western society is to hide our light.
Yeah.
You know, don't toot your own horn, or don't draw attention to yourself and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. And we're taught that, yeah, and in lots of ways, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that line is especially important to me because my name actually means light, right? Lucho, light. So, and I did hide my light for many years. So, and it's still a struggle. Even though I'm a teacher, there's still a part of me that I think I can shine even more. It's just I have to step into that light a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Kim, when you said something that made me think of, and I didn't write it down. Okay, so you were saying how he came here to teach us how something, but I realized that he taught also is teaching us that we're all one. And the way I see it, because I see things visually, right? See energy and energetic, the way it is energetically, the one mind is that we are all aspects of the one mind. So he is, say, at the top of the pyramid of the one mind, pulling all our aspects up in, as he teaches us up into the top of the pyramid, the oneness of the one mind, God, source. And as we help each other, we're pulling each other up higher. Integration work, you could call it. We're pulling
Yes.
each other up higher. So he knows that we're all one mind. And that's what we're doing, is we're pulling each other up into more light, where we can hold more light, because we are light. And I see the pyramid, so to speak, is light. And we've got these parts of us that have been, they've been painful and hurt and everything, and we hold on to the grief and the shame and whatever it is that we hold on to, and the guilt that resists the light. So he's teaching us how to remember each one of us is a part of the whole, and each one of us is a mirror for ourselves.
Yeah, and extremely powerful. Right?
Yeah.
Our influence is beyond our imagination.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was just listening to an NDE. He described that she went to the other side, and that was one of her revelations, that we have no idea how much we influence others, good and bad. And
Right.
a lot of NDE people say that they've experienced in a life review, they've exactly that, how much their light has shone, and it's really amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
When you're speaking, Sharon,
Mhm.
I don't know, with the pyramids, the verse that came to mind was, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That's another favorite verse from the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was always about renewal. I make all things new, that type of thing. Yeah.
I also
Everything is.
love, I feel like he's such a good example of humanity too. If, again, I think these parts of the Bible are true, but in John, when he knows they're going to come and arrest him, I love those chapters. There's like 3 or 4 chapters. And again, Lucio, you can correct me on this, but it's almost like, if you were saying goodbye to someone who was on their deathbed, and the things you would say to them, so those passages are really special to me as I read them. And he's just conveying over and over again how much he loves them, and how, like, they can never part, and that they're there always will be connected, basically. But just how much he loved them, it was said so many times in those chapters. And so, he had an earthly experience just like we are, and experienced relationships and wanted to make sure his friends knew how much he loved them. I think that's really neat.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I'm reminded of the scene in The Chosen where at the end of season 3, I'm not sure, where I think it was the last one. Lucho, you've seen it, where he walks on water. And he tells, the one where, and he tells Simon Peter, "Oh, ye of little faith."
Yes.
And then Simon Peter is saying, he says, "Why did you doubt me?" And Simon Peter is saying, "Don't ever leave me. Don't ever leave me." Oh, every time I see that scene, which has been 4 or 5 times now,
Huh.
I've watched the series at least 5 times. He's saying, "Don't ever leave me. Don't ever leave me," as he's sobbing. And when he says, "I won't, and I'm always here. I'm always here," it reminds me that he's able to, because people say, how can Jesus be in so many places at once? He's able to because he is us. We are him. Does that make any sense? In the higher way of, because we are a part of him. And energetically, I see that we are a part of him. That's what he tells us, is that we are never apart. We are there, sitting there, or we are there with him. It even says that in the Way of Mastery. You are already here in God's arms. If you want to look at it that way, in God's arms, the lap of God, you are already here with me. You're just dreaming.
Well, if I mean, love binds all to be one.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And
if he is the embodiment of love, right? I guess that's maybe what the incarnation is, right? It's love incarnate. And I never thought about that, but if God is love, and that's a straight quote from the Bible, St. John. It's my favorite quote. I've got it in big letters and on my blackboard. God is love, and Jesus is love in a physical form. That's what the incarnation is,
right?
And we are connected through love to every single person. What a beautiful thing to think about.
Wow. Yeah, that's our bond.
Yeah, sure. That is beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and as a medium, when I help clients with connecting to their loved ones and to their side, and they say that all the time, is that I haven't gone anywhere. Our love binds us. So anytime you think of me, or they think of us, their loved ones, there's that connection, or it embraces that connection, or it's like making a phone call, basically. They, spirit doesn't go anywhere when we leave our physical body. We don't really go anywhere.
True.
Yeah, we're just vibrating at a higher consciousness, at a higher frequency, and the love is our bond. The love is the glue that keeps us bound to each other, in soul groups and things like that, for sure. But all of us are glued together. Yes. There's no way around it. Okay.
And would you say love is an energy? And they say energy can never die. Would you call that? Would you think of love as an energy?
Sure.
Yeah. The ultimate, right? The only.
Yeah.
Is there anything else?
Right. Love is all that's real. So that's, if everything's energy, that's all that's real, and it's bound, and its base form is love. What we call love. That's the best word we can come up with.
Right.
But love doesn't even cover what really keeps us all,
Hmm.
connected.
I mean, especially with sort of the human earthly definition of love. You know,
Yes.
you don't have to go on to social media very long to hear people sort of give up on love, but that's not what's really going on. Their ego showed up.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. And
Well, they're
love
talking about
never
the earth.
fails. But I love how you said the glue. I could really visualize that. And as someone who's obviously not as talented as you, Sharon, at channeling the other side, but I definitely channel the other side all the time. And it's
Of
so
course.
easy. It's so easy. I feel them and I can totally feel their messages. Maybe I just need to build my confidence in it, like we've been doing the
Trust it.
mediumship practice, but and
Yeah.
getting the evidential information from them. Maybe it's because I don't even really care. I just care more about the feelings. I'm an INFP. I'm a feelings person anyway. So it's like I just care about the feeling they're conveying and the emotional. I tend to see the emotional auras of people. So that's kind of my jam. But it's so
Mhm.
easy. And that makes sense. If we're love and we're love incarnate and we're all love and that's the glue, then that's of course that's why it's so easy. It's so easy.
mhm.
Yeah.
minus the wars and the hatred and the prejudice and
Minus all that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's sometimes it's not easy to love someone or something. When you think about the atrocities of humanity, it's not so easy to love that. It's easy to love someone you love,
Hmm. Sure.
right? It's not
Or
so easy to love someone that's
no.
that we see that part of us, and he taught me to say it this way: that part of me that
Mm.
is, doing
Oh,
something that I don't feel is, right, kind of thing. That part of me, because everyone is a
yes.
part of me. So obviously there's a part of me which is our higher part of us, and that is,
Yeah.
I'm, that is in the field
Yeah. And what
field
did
of
he
mind.
say? Love your
Mhm.
enemies.
Love your enemies, because he knows
So,
that they're a part of us.
right. So how if you don't love the part of you that's an enemy within you, then you will not be whole.
Yeah. Yes.
Whoa.
Yes. And love transcends all
Mm,
and transforms all.
mm.
I'm
Yeah.
curious. I mean, would this be too much to bridge this gap of I'm kind of curious, Lucio,
Mhm.
with because you teach religion and the whole thing going on in Israel,
Mm.
and that's where Jesus is from.
Mhm.
Any thoughts on that? Kind of
Hmm.
tying in what we're talking about here?
Oof.
And the
All the
loving your enemies and
yeah, there's a lot of fear there. What's the ultimate enemy of love is fear.
Fear
And
is the
this
opposite of love.
yeah. And there's fear on
That's
both
for
sides.
Yeah.
It's historic.
okay, fear on both sides. That's a very good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
so when
all
we
all
act out of
negative.
fear, it's never good.
Yeah.
No, all negative
Never,
emotions
ever
are
good.
based on fear. All negative emotions are based on fear. You taught me that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All all of it is anything that doesn't feel like love is fear. Fear is the exact opposite of love.
Yeah. I
And
really
all the
believe that.
rest, and what come, and the wars and the feelings of it and everything like that, are
Hmm.
I'm trying to think of the word, the result of fear.
I
Yeah.
mean, in my
Or
teaching,
grief.
this is just in how you're phrasing this, it's really like I'm really visualizing it. I teach about ego. Ego is an
Mhm.
aspect of it's the only way we can have a human experience is to have
Mm.
this ego, which I think is
Mhm.
nature and nurture. It can be nurtured.
Mhm.
Ego can be nurtured more or less. But um Yeah, ego is just literally behaving out of fear. That's it. And that's
Yeah.
why witnessing that from your higher self perspective, from your love perspective, because this
Right.
ego actually needs our love, but the ego is freaking out and fearful and whispering and telling us to, you know, be defensive, blame someone, you know, get revenge. How dare they do that? Because they're just behaving out of, it's just behaving out of fear.
Right.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
could just really feel that as you were speaking.
Yeah.
The ego is all about survival.
Mhm.
Which
I mean,
fear
what the
of
ego
not
is all about.
surviving. Yeah.
That's what the ego is all about, is survival. Yeah.
And then the people in power manipulate that fear
Mm,
and multiply it
yeah.
to their own end.
Yeah.
You know, because if you put a Jew and a Palestinian in the same room with no history, no background, they're just people. But you put all of that the political stuff on top of it, and people can trying to manipulate what they see in each other. Then bad things can and bad things are happening.
You know, it's funny. Wasn't Yeshua a Palestinian Jew?
Yeah.
It's interesting too with when we think about the world today, because I've been kind of contemplating this, how with all this social media and stuff, right? People are actually watching spiritual leaders and teachers like never before.
Mhm.
All of us out there in coaching. So light is really being shown. And at the same time, it's like news 24/7 from how many different outlets. And
Mhm.
I just don't think our brains were designed to handle all of that, even all the spiritual stuff. It's like, this is interesting. I want to share this. I had a girl reach out to me from Thailand wanting coaching. And this is very recently. And based upon our initial consultation, and from what I could feel intuitively, and just from what she was saying, it's spiritual overload. She's listened to all these spiritual people and is just listening, taking in, just receiving, and not experiencing. She's laying on her bed, taking it all in, and it's working to her detriment because she's not actually living life. She's not experiencing these things, and she's young, not too young, but late 20s, I guess. I was like, this is a real problem. Like, we came to Earth to experience, to have experiences, physical. We wanted to have a physical body and do this, but all, just the temptation to get those dopamine hits, and just my own walks in the desert every morning. I felt like Jesus, my spirit, someone was telling me, Kim, don't keep scrolling. When you read something really awesome and it hits you, when you probably get a dopamine hit or whatever, even it's spiritual, stop. Breathe it in. Let it embody you. But what do? We scroll for another and another and another and another. It's like, it's, as we know, it's very addictive, but yeah. I have concerns about that, but it's, me managing myself first, and then hopefully it's just the trouble is self-control. Self-control is hard on the earth plane. It is very hard on the earth plane to have that self-control. But
Discipline.
I see it as a real issue that's I think gonna come up for all these kids who've been raised on phones.
I see it every day. Right?
It's already
It's just
coming
this
up.
overwhelm.
Yeah. It's a completely new generation.
Are you seeing the anxiety and the depression? Because that's what was
Absolutely.
this girl. It's high.
Yeah.
It's too much information.
And on the flip side, like they're zombies in a way. Like they're
That is a great description.
Yeah.
It turns you into a zombie.
Yeah. Yeah, gone are the days of students laughing, even talking. The weirdest thing is for me to walk into a room full of students and it's dead quiet.
And they're all on their phones.
They're all on their phones.
Oh my
It's the
God.
strangest thing, and I can't tell you the last time I heard a class laugh out loud. You know, and
Oh,
I'm not saying I'm the funniest guy in the world, but I can to entertain. I used to anyway. um, but yeah, and it takes a lot for them to be curious, to be to ask questions. It's yeah, it's difficult.
yeah.
So I don't know where it's going.
It's a sad state of affairs for sure. I mean, they're great tools, but unfortunately,
Yeah. Yeah,
they've
if
become
adults,
ridiculous.
if Kim is saying she's having and we all, we're all adults and we're having difficulty, at least we have
Hmm.
a bit of history, a bit of maturity. But imagine a child, they're
Right.
starting from scratch, and it's boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's a scary stuff, and you know, um, I've had these images of of us being uploaded into the cloud, but not the
mm,
good cloud. You know what I
mm,
mean? Yeah. So it takes discipline for sure,
yeah,
and for parents to, of course. I didn't raise a child,
yes,
so I can't talk. But my sister raised her two boys, and they're not they're
uh-huh,
better at that. One's a musician, so he's not
mm-hmm,
he's
yeah.
able to use his creativity, which is really really important. And yeah,
It's
so
not impossible with help from
it's not.
parents. Yeah,
It helped.
yeah,
The parents have to.
yeah.
That's what's so important, to have parents and in involved in kids' lives.
Hmm.
Yeah, totally. But then how many parents are addicted to their phones?
Yes,
How many
exactly.
of us are addicted to our phones? I know, right? I have to make myself turn my phone over. Okay,
Hey,
I've
yeah.
seen enough videos.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I have to turn it over. So
Yeah, it's
we
important.
have to be the leaders.
Our school motto, I love our school motto. It's ancient. It's from the Basilian order, and it's teach me goodness, discipline, and knowledge. And it's in that order, Teach me goodness, discipline, and knowledge. Knowledge is last.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's the recipe for a master, for sure.
Yes.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
mastery right there. Yeah. But
Yeah.
if you're watching us on YouTube, stay with us a
Haha.
little while longer. Don't disconnect now.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. If it wasn't for, I think I've said this before. If it wasn't for me being interested, I would never have met Sharon. I wouldn't have gone down this route, years ago.
Yeah.
It's opened me up tremendously to areas I would never have been involved in if the internet had not been invented. I probably would have been a Catholic priest. I think of that often. If the internet had never been invented, I probably just would have continued on that path that I was on. But
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. And there's,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. But it was just it's a different world.
different path. Yeah.
Yeah.
Different way of life. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a tool. It's a really, really, really awesome tool. We just have to remember that's what it is. It's a tool.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, we've given lots of tools in life, lots of tools. So we have to remember that, not let them take over our life. Go ahead,
Yes.
Kim.
Oh, I was just thinking before knowing the topic we were going to talk about, and I was just kind of processing today. And one thing we haven't mentioned yet is with the Ascension,
Mhm.
there was the 3 days and then he rose again, according to the story. And I think about sort of the 3 days in darkness, right? And
Yeah.
so I have kind of a little story of that. This was about 6 years after my divorce to my son's dad, and I was really having a tough time with my son at the time. And so I asked God, help me, show me what's going on. And basically I got a visual of a picture that I knew of because it was one of these very special pictures that I loved. And so I ran to the photo album and I saw the picture and I knew exactly what God was showing me. And it was devastating, the truth of it. Well, I'll just share with you. So basically, God showed me that I energetically detached from my son when he was 1.5 in order to, I felt like I needed to work and overwork. And I had to, like, in order to do that, I had to kind of energetically detach from him. So that knowledge, I understood why God was showing it to me. And again, I was far enough along on my spiritual journey that I feel like God knew I could handle it and that I would use it for the good. But it was so devastating that I felt like I spent 3 days in hell. Like I literally did not stop crying. And I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. I did not stop crying for 3 days. I didn't work. I did nothing but just cry at the truth that was shown to me. And then I kid you not, on the third day, I rose again. I kid you not. It was just lifted. It just lifted from me. It lifted from me. And I believe this is a great metaphor for anyone out there that has something really painful that is hard to look at. You can look at it. You can witness it. And it's almost like if you do, then it does lift. And, I called my ex-husband and my son, and I went over to their house, and I shared with them, and I asked for forgiveness. And to me, that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. I think there's something symbolic in that, like the 3 days. And I think there's something about 3 days. I do. And it was my going into the darkness, the suffering, and then I rose again.
That's beautiful. Wow. Very profound. I love that. 3 is a holy number, isn't it?
Yes. Yep, it sure is. And theologically speaking, it's a real mystery. Like, I don't think any theologian has tried to explain where Jesus went. What did he do in between, the crucifixion and the resurrection? It's a mystery.
Well, maybe he'll tell us one day.
Yes.
We all have a pipeline to him. So
Yes. Yeah. The Orthodox Christians have a great ritual on Easter. They go inside of it. They walk inside of a church. They have a candle, and they crouch down and they walk underneath a table, or it's sort of like an altar, and they crouch down and walk underneath it, and then they rise up, and the candle is lit.
wow.
This idea of dying and then rising, it's such a powerful symbol.
Yeah. I love that. That reminds me of when I was going through my quickening, dark night of the soul type of thing. It was a lot longer than 3 days, though, unfortunately. And I kept hearing and thinking that I was dying. And then I realized later on what was happening was I was dying to these parts of me. These parts of me were, you know what I mean? I was dying to that part. I was letting that go, healing that,
Yes.
facing it, because I had to face it. I had to face whatever was coming up. I had no choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it was like, it's right here in my face. I have to go in the bedroom and I have to let it come up and just face it.
Yeah.
But I always felt like I was dying because I have anxiety and panic attacks. Yeah.
Yeah, I left it out of my story this time, but after meeting the dying man on the street, it took about a month and a half. It was the darkest time of my life because I too was facing my past and that separation from God and who I had become. And at the end of it, I was just I was empty. And it was like I hit rock bottom, as they say, and there was nowhere else to go but up. And that's when I surrendered to Jesus and to love, and think, okay, this is the beginning of my new life. And it really was. My whole life changed after that.
Nice. Surrender. That's important.
Yeah. But I had to look at that the darkness. The darkness came first. And then the light.
Wow. Spiritual transformation, spiritual work is not easy.
No.
Or else everyone would be doing it, right? It's not easy. It takes a lot of courage, and it also takes surrender.
Yeah.
I have memories of just laying on my bed, just like, I surrender. I don't know what to do. Why am I seeing reptilians all around me? I was terrified in my own freaking bedroom, and I could see through the veil. And so these were all these memories coming up. And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Take me. I was out in the backyard
Yes.
screaming at the top of my lungs, just take me, please come get me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So surrender is, and then after a while, you see that light. I prayed for peace of mind, prayed on my knees every day for peace of mind. Yeah.
Yeah, it comes with surrender,
Mm-hmm.
It's the death of ego. I've got nothing left. I give it, to you, and
Right.
I was on my way out too. I didn't want to, because I just thought that I couldn't climb up, there was no way, I couldn't do it.
Yeah, sometimes we got to hit those places. Like you said, there's nowhere else but up.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, if I was just trying to explain the story of Judas and then Peter, the difference during this time where Judas betrays Jesus, of course, and according to Scripture, he hangs himself with remorse, thinking he can't ever come back from this. Where Peter also betrays Jesus, in fact, 3 times before the cock crows in the morning. And I love this passage in the Bible where it does. Peter looks at Jesus in the morning after the trial and after he's betrayed him, and they exchange a look. And in the Bible, it doesn't describe what that look is. It just says they have a look. But all we know is that Peter ends up changing his life and then becoming the true leader of the church. And so one, despair, suicide, the other, transformation and life.
Right.
It's an incredible story.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that look that Jesus gave you?
Maybe we'll see it in the chosen.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't think it was one of like, why do I do? I think it was one as like of pure love. I think it was
pure love.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure of that too. When I was going through my quickening 20 years ago, Yeshua told me, he said, you will deny me. I don't know if he said 3 times or not, but he said, you will deny me in your life. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why would I deny you? And he also told me, you will also be crucified in your life. Yeah. Oof. I know, right?
Yeah.
And I realized later on what he was talking about. I was at, after I'd gone through my quickening, I was waking up, and I worked for in San Antonio, I worked for religious people, Southern Baptists, and I was afraid to tell them about my experience. I was afraid to tell a lot of people about my experience. I didn't talk about it for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did basically deny that was that I had that relationship with him. Yeah. So I did. He was right, of course. He knows. And then and then when I did start talking about him, the people that I worked with, not my boss though, he said, praise be, didn't believe me and told me, yeah, people have said some ugly things, you know, I've seen it, but yeah. So that's what he was talking about.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's part of the deal, right? That's part of the ascension process. And it was
Yeah.
difficult. It was difficult to talk about my relationship with him in my circles.
Yes, and I'm sure you felt a sense of betrayal, right?
Hmm.
Just
Yeah.
as Jesus did, and all the disciples, when Jesus predicted, you know, you guys are going to betray me, and every disciple said, "Not me. I won't do it. Not
No,
me.
no,
Not
not
me."
me. Yeah. And here I am. There you go. So yeah, it's interesting. He's forgiven me though.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So in closing, let's talk about that ascension process and how we can all embrace that and be in that space and from our perspective. Who wants to go first?
You go first, Lucio.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to put in. I think we've touched on so much tonight, and
Yes, we have.
The idea that there's a process of crucifixion and resurrection, with a bit of betrayal in there. But for me, it always comes down to love. You know, it's simple, and I think that's God was incarnate in Jesus in love, and that we have a friend and a brother in Jesus to help us ourselves ascend and become that love incarnate. And yes, God willing, we'll get there when we go to heaven and on the next life. But if we can do that here on this plane, and as we talked about the influence in the pyramid, and we could change the world. And I think
Sure.
ultimately that was the point of Jesus. I mean, why else would he come here if not,
Yeah.
to change the world? And he's given us that responsibility too, because again, he didn't have to have disciples, but he did. And we are those disciples in this day and age. And I think you said it yourself that a lot of us have chosen to be here at this stage who knew Jesus in that
Yes.
era,
Yes.
to help,
Walked with him.
to continue the journey here, because I think we're at a special point in time. Wherever that goes, I think the world is definitely changing.
Yeah. Beautiful. Kim, would you like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just say that I feel like Jesus is saying to us, if I can do it, you can do it too.
Right.
And that's always been powerful for me on my journey. Every step of the way, whether it's just looking to Jesus who paved the way for me, or even Buddha, or even just other spiritual leaders and teachers when they share their stories of pain and then ascension. It is possible. And I, even when I was in my darkest days, I just kind of looked to that, knowing that it was possible for me too. And that helped me go through each day. So I think that's good. And then I just thought about the truth will set you free. That's another favorite verse that Jesus said. I kind of say it truth and love, but they're one and the same. But it's kind of cool, both words. So the truth does set us free. And basically we're speaking forth the truth of the power of love. And it absolutely sets you free. So I felt like saying too what came to me. So someone who had passed away, he was young, and it was suicide. And he wanted to give a message to someone that I was with. And I love what he said. He said, "Life is a gift. Don't be in a rush to get here." I thought that was very, very cool to hear him say that. Like, so that helps me at times when life is hard, that we actually signed up for it. We wanted to have this experience, and it is a gift to have a physical incarnation. I mean, how cool is that? So I thank Ezra for channeling that message through to me.
Nice. Ezra sounds very wise. Yeah. So yeah, my thoughts are just like both of you have said, that Yeshua he came here to pave the way for us. And he said that I come here with good news. I paved the way. I am the conduit. I've made the way for you. And in that little excerpt I shared where he says, just, keep your thoughts on me. And I mean, the Christ light, or the Christ within, the Christ, and you're on your way, right? You're on the road, you're on the path. And so, it's not a religious thing. And that was one thing that bothered me before, is whenever I would mention Jesus or Yeshua, people automatically go, "Oh, religion, religious." And it's not religion. It's not religious. It's love. It's all about love. And that he came here to help us more than we could even imagine, that he did pave the way for us. He is the conduit. And we're all here again to help each other, to pull us up into the light, and that we can embody that, and we can ascend just like he did. Like you said, Kim, that if I can do it, you can do it. And we can, whether it be in this body. Hey, why not?
Absolutely.
I believe that this is the end times that he talked about, the end of an age. That's why we're here. And and people come to the planet that are interested, or come to the planet for evolutionary times, and when Christ was here was one of them. Why wouldn't you want to be on the planet when he was there? And so this is the 2,000 years later, we came back to say, okay, this is the what you taught us. Now we're putting it into we've been for 2,000 years slowly but surely putting into play your teachings. So thank you, Yeshua, for helping us remember.
Yeah, and being with us. That's
right.
That when he said, "Where two or more people are gathered in my name, I will be there." And I really felt his presence tonight. So thank you, Sharon, for allowing us to come together. And I'm sure Jesus was here. I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I've felt him throughout the whole thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you, Kim,
Thank
for being
you.
here as well. Always a pleasure, both of you, and we'll have to do this again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm always up for talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeshua.
Yeah.
Anytime.
All right. And thank you, everyone that was watching. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
And we hope that this was helpful for you and you enjoyed it. And we will
Yes.
see you next time.
Next time. Happy Easter, everyone.
Thank
Happy
you.
Easter.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter. Bye-bye.